Now look at the homework problems that are in section 7.1. The first problem reads, write the following sum using powers of 10 to show place value. Here we got 0.413 or 413 thousandths. And the way we're going to have to write this is in expanded notation. So in this case here for the 4 is in the tens place, so we're going to write that as 4 times. Now since it's one number behind the decimal point, it's going to be 10 to the power of -1. And then our 1 is in the hundreds place, so we have plus 1. The hundreds place is going to be 10 to the power of -2. And then the 3 is in the thousands place, so it'll be plus 3 times the thousandths is in exponential form 10 to the -3rd. So here we got 4 times 10 to the -1 plus 1 times 10 to the -2 plus 3 times 10 to the -3. And this is written in expanded form. All right, in number 2, the number is in expanded form, but we're going to rewrite the following as a decimal. So here we got 7 times 10 to the 3rd plus 4 times 10 to the 2nd plus 3 times 10 plus 8 plus 5 times 10 to the -1 plus 6 times 10 to the -2. Well, 7 times 10 to the 3rd is 7,000. Because 10 to the 3rd is 1,000. 1,000 times 7 is 7,000. 4 times 10 to the 2nd is 400. Because 10 squared is 100. 4 times 10 is 400. And then 3 times 10, that's 30. And then we got plus 8. Now for 5 times 10 to the -1 power. The 10 to the -1 tells me that the 5 is going to be in the tens place, which is one number behind the decimal point. So it's going to be 0.5. 6 times 10 to the -2nd means, well, the 10 to the -2nd means that the 6 is going to be in the hundreds place, which is the second place value position after the decimal point. So we'll write this as 0.06. Now if we add all this together, this will be 7,438.56 or 7,438 and 56 hundredths. And that will be the number written in the form of a decimal. Okay, problem number 3. We're going to write each decimal in numbers. In this case, 280 and 2 thousandths. Okay, now let's look at the part that's before the and, the word 280. We write that as 280 to represent 280. The word and represents our decimal point. Now, 2 thousandths. Now, the word thousands means that the thousandths place is the third number behind the decimal point. So we need to write 2 thousandths with three numbers. The 2 will go on the end because the 2 will have to be in the thousandths place. The other numbers will have to be zeros in front of it. So that number will be 280.002. All right, number 4, write 0.36 in words. Okay, so the part behind the decimal point, we read that as we would a whole number. 36, that'll be 36. Now we have to give that 36 the name of the very last place value position. Well, the place value position of the very last digit. Here the 6 is in the hundreds place, so it'll be 36 hundredths. Okay, you read the number and then give that number the place value position that the very last digit is in. The 6 is in the hundreds place, so 36 will have the last place value position the 6 is in, the hundreds place. Number 5. Without performing actual division, determine whether the following represents a terminating decimal. Here we got 11 over 5 to the third times 8. Now there is a rule that says here that in this particular situation here, you cannot have any of the primes other than 2 and 5 for it to be a terminating decimal. 8 is not a prime number. However, we can write 8 as a product of primes. So what I'm going to do is write 11, and then we got 5 to the third. But 8 as a product of primes will be 2 times 2 times 2, or 2 to the third. Now here we only got primes of prime numbers 2 and 5. Here the denominator cannot have any other primes other than 2 and 5. In this case, all we have is just 2 and 5, so yes, this particular fraction does represent a terminating decimal. Okay, now let's say we had 5 to the third times 2 to the third times, let's say, 7. Then that would not be a terminating decimal because it has a prime number other than 2 and 5, okay, which is 7. So only 2 and 5 are allowed in the denominator and no other primes. Number 6, write as a decimal. Here we got 1/8. We want to write that as a decimal. You can use the calculator, or you can divide the denominator into the numerator. So that means 8 will go into 1. And we're going to have to put a decimal point behind the 1 and bring it up in the quotient, and then add a 0. And then divide 8 into 10, which will go 1 time. 1 times 8 is 8. 8 from 10 will be 2. We're going to add another 0 in our dividend, and then bring that down. 8 goes into 20 2 times. 2 times 8 is 16. 16 minus 20. 16 from 20 will give us 4. But we need to add another 0 and bring that down. And then divide 8 into 40. That will go 5 times. And you'll have a 0 remainder. So 1/8 as a decimal will be 0.125. And of course you can use your calculator and do 1 divided by 8, and you'll get the decimal value of 0.125. Okay, problem number 7. In each of the following, order the decimals from greatest to least. Okay, let's look at part A. We got 24.1561, 24.153, 24.15274, and 24.1527. We're going to go from largest to smallest. Okay? Now, the way we do that, we have to line these decimals up, place value by place value. As you can see here. And then we start comparing each place value position until we come to the first place value position where the face values are different. Here the tens place are the same. In the ones place, all the numbers are the same. In the tens place, all the numbers are the same. In the hundreds place, all of these numbers are the same. Until we get to the thousands place, then the face values are different. Okay? Now, here we got a 2, then a 3, a 2, and a 2. Here, the 3 is bigger than these 2's here. So 24.153 will be the first number in this set, because we're going from greatest to least. So this is the greater of the remaining 3. Now from the remaining 3, we have to start comparing. Now here we got a 6, and then a 7, and a 7. Well, we know these 2, that's bigger than this one. Okay? So it's going to be one of these 2 that's going to be the second greatest. Now if I put a 0 here, I can see that this is bigger than this. So this right here will be second. Then this will have to be third. And this one will have to be the fourth one. Okay, so the correct order will be 24.153. Then the second one will be 25. In fact, you'll have to pick which one is. So it'll be 24.153 will be first. Then that's bigger than the second one, which is 24.15274. That would be this one. And then the third one would be 24.1527. Then finally, 24.15261. Okay, so that would be the correct order. Okay, now part B has negative numbers in it. Okay, and we're going to order from greatest to least. So now we got negative 8.5081. Then the next one is negative 8.591. Then negative 8.581. And then negative 8.58. Okay, now with negative numbers, we have to pick the smaller place value, because any number that's greater than the other will have to be the number that's closest to 0. Okay, here these 8s are the same and the 5s are the same, but when we get here, okay, we want to pick the smaller of these three of these numbers here. This 0 is smaller than 8 and 9, which means that negative 8.5081 is closer to 0 than the others. Okay, so this one will be the greatest. So negative 8.5081 would be the greatest. I'm going to say this one's the first one. And then we're going to look at the other two. Well, here, these two right here is less than 9. Okay, now comparing these two, I put a 0 here so you can compare these two. Here, this is smaller than this. This will be closer to 0 than 8.581. So the second greatest will be 8.580 or 8.58, and that'll be negative 8.58. And then this next one will have to be negative 8.581, which will be this one. And then the last one will be 8.591. Okay, now this one with negatives, you have to think about which one of these will be closer to 0 than the other. And negative 8.5081 will be closer to 0. Okay, problem number 8. Write the numbers in each of the following sentences as decimals in symbols. In part A, an insect has a body length about 14/100ths of an inch. Okay, so in this case here, 14/100ths, we know hundredths is two numbers, is the second place value position after the decimal point. So here 14/100ths, filling this up with 2 spaces will be 0.14. And then part B, a planet goes around its sun once every 244 and 42 thousandths days. So in this case here, let's see, every 244 will be 244, and it's a decimal point, 42 thousandths. The thousandths place is the third place value position after the decimal point. So to write 42 thousandths, filling up these 3 spaces, it will have to be a 2 and then the 4, 0. So it'll be 244.042. And that's how you'll write that as decimals. Right, problem number 9. If the decimal is 0.57, .5619, .5619, and .507 are arranged on a typical horizontal number line. Which is furthest to the left? Okay, now you can put this in, line these up. 0.5619 and then 0.507. Okay, which one would be furthest to the left? Well, the tens place is the same. The hundreds place is different. If it's furthest to the left, we want the smallest, and that's 0.507. So 0.507 is the one that's furthest to the left. Problem number 10. The 5 top swimmers in an event had the following times. And in order, how were they placed? Okay, so we have to compare place value positions here. If you look in the tens place, the sixes are the same. Now the ones place, we see a 0 here for Molly and Rhonda. Okay. Now, since we're dealing with times here, the ones with the lowest number is the one with the fastest time. Okay. So Rhonda finished first, and then Molly was second. And then for Kathy, Emily, and Martha, we have to compare those. Kathy finished third because she finished with 0.81. Then 0.84 is slower, so Emily finished after Kathy, and then Martha finished last. So it will be this order: Rhonda, Molly, Kathy, Emily, then Martha. Okay. And that should help you with the homework problems in section 7.1.